Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Usually after the hysteria wanes away, disappears or dissipates, sane people dare to show up again and try to fix whatever was not destroyed totally. This is the case with whatever happens on the territory of Ukraine between the United States of America and its enemies, which is the Russians. Manufactured enemies, I might say. You don't have to be an enemy, you could be a competitor, the opponent, but not an enemy. An enemy raises the bar higher in terms of your actions or reactions to whatever the opposite side does. And in this case, it's about Norway. Now we live in an hysteria. The hysteria was in the first 7 to 8 months of this thing that is in Ukraine, the war. And now it seems like the hysteria wanes away. Why does it wane away? Because all the terms, the injuries, the name calling became already overused. So when the whole thing started in February 24, 25, right, 2022, gradually Russia was called names, Putin was called names, the Russians were called names, everything that is that way was called names. They were called names that you can't add more. You can't insult more. They are criminals of war. They are terrorists. Putin is worse than Hitler. Now, what else can you bring on the table? They raped, they mass murdered, they attack children and civilians on a daily basis, destroy manufacture that falls under the terrorism umbrella. What other terms? And these terms were already overused because they were used too often. Now they lose their own strength. If you call someone something one time, it has one impact. But if you keep repeating that, the injury, insult, it's waning away, losing its effectiveness. So now there's no more. There's no more. The public, against whom all this was directed, the name calling of those guys so they understand who they're dealing with, are already like, oh, okay, here we go again, okay, we got that one, next. So there's no more hype. It's like you got the maximum of the drug, you can't get higher than that unless you pass out. That's the next step here. And the pass out would be a blow up of this planet. There's nothing else. Just what? Or you receive some rockets on your head in your country. So now that we're done with this, we have Norway. And Norway, started saying certain things that brings them back to sanity, to normality. Which is, they report, they confess, that they still have channels of communications with Russia, including military. So they didn't break all that as the boss, which is the United States of America, demanded that you don't talk with those guys at all, like we didn't, which they did. Anyway, so there are countries that have no contact with Russia. No contact order, right there. But Norway starts coming back to its senses and realizes that what's going on over there has to end at one point. And not that it has to end, but the hysteria lost its hype. So let's see what's going on with Norway, who used to be balanced, a balanced country internationally, and seems like maybe it regains its sanity. They don't have to be Russia's friend, but they have to get out of this delusional hysteria that they were dragged into. Norwegian defense minister says country maintains some contacts with Russia. This article comes from Sputnik from today, the 27th of November 2022. Norwegian Defense Minister Bjorn Arild Gram says that despite the situation around Ukraine, his country has retained some lines of communication with Moscow, including on the military level. The defense minister said he expected things to return back to normal at some point. I don't think that's what those guys want. And the normal would be when all those guys in Russia are done and a new Yeltsin comes over, or a weasel that's gonna be yes sir, towards the great master United States. That's when it's gonna be over. The normal, that will be the normal, and it will take an instant if they do it overnight. It wouldn't take time. Overnight. If the new leaders of Russia will allow the United States to do what they've been doing when Yeltsin was around, Russia will be the same funny looking backward knuckle draggers that they were looked at between 1991 and 1999, and still are. Because if you ask these guys about what the Russians are, they still have bear in chains and drink vodka and are kind of like funny crazy, like hillbillies. So I'm quoting, contacts between our countries, of course, changed after February 24th. Of course. At the same time, we have maintained some lines of communication. We cooperate in the field of fishing. We are engaged in joint rescue operations at sea. We also maintain military ties, although with much less activity, end quote. Graham said in a Sunday interview with Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung newspaper. On Wednesday, the defense ministers of the Northern Group, Northern European Defense Policy Forum, held a meeting in Oslo to discuss implications of the conflict in Ukraine for national security and for Finland's and Sweden's bids for NATO membership. Since Russia launched its military operation in Ukraine on February 24th, Western countries have been providing Ukraine with humanitarian, military and financial aid. In July, Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store announced that Oslo would allocate 10 billion kroner, about $1 billion, to Ukraine in 2022 and 2023. Well, it's okay. Each country should be allowed to run its independent course. The problem is they don't. The problem is that I think it's a disconnection or discontent between the leaders of the country and the population. And the population must follow what the leaders say with the help of the mass media, who seem to be in the hands of bigger interests than the national interest. So you can see this in countries everywhere, I guess, where you see the mass media promoting the same narrative, and they try to I don't know, destroy people's ability or even attempts to expose a different version or bring evidence that would contradict or balance the narrative created. I'm pretty sure it's not only Norway that wakes up, as I said, not to be Russia's friend, but gets out of that frenzy drug that right now we are supposed to be in, and be scared, very much scared of Russia, and do everything that our leaders tell us to do, because otherwise we like Russia and we help Russia and we love Russia. Okay? So, good job, Norway. And I'm pretty sure there are other countries that do the same thing, but they are not daring to open their mouth yet like these guys. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.